Exposed, the haunted secrets of the cursed Pope and his sinister Vatican orgies revealed, late-night whispers filled the suburban air as Laura sank into her worn couch. The glow of her phone offered no comfort, just a reminder of unpaid bills piling up on the kitchen counter. The silence of her home echoed back, heavy with the absence of her late husband. Adam, her introverted 16-year-old son, was in the attic, rummaging through forgotten boxes. The attic had become his sanctuary, a sanctuary now filled with dust and memories, until he stumbled upon that box tied with an ancient ribbon, its contents mysterious. As Adam opened the box, the ancient rosary emerged, its grim carvings gazing at him as if holding secrets. His heart raced. He felt an unsettling pulse, as if the rosary craved something more than mere existence. Just then, a chill brushed past him, sending shivers down his spine. It wasn't just his imagination, the house felt different. Shadows flickered at the edges of his vision, darting when he turned to look. The attic, once a refuge, turned hostile. Laura's late shifts at the hospital blurred the lines of day and night. Exhaustion hung on her like a heavy cloak, and soon, strange occurrences began. It started with curious thuds that echoed down the hallway. The walls whispered secrets she couldn't decipher, and shadows danced just beyond her reach. She swept her hair back and tried to focus, but paranoia stirred in her mind. The warmth of friendly neighbors morphed into wary glances as whispers of a darker history about the suburb surfaced. A connection to the Vatican, something sinister cloaked in everyday life. Panic began to settle in as she learned about her deceased father's ties with the church, a man she only remembered in half-formed memories. Rumors of a clandestine Vatican group swirled in her head, tying her lineage to dark forces. She had never believed in ghosts or curses, but the weight of suspicion sank her spirit. She overheard conversations in the grocery store that twisted her stomach. Talks of sins and sacrifices. What had her father been involved in? The darkness seemed to reach for her and Adam, growing closer with each passing day. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each moment, Laura's determination grew while her anxiety spiraled. She confronted Adam about the rosary, demanding he put it away. But its pull was too strong. Adam clutched it tightly as night descended, feeling its pulse, a warning that gnawed at him. Their home, once a safe haven, began to feel haunted. The silent air crackled with tension. Adam sensed a presence lurking in the corners, and Laura felt it too, an instinct that they were never alone. As darkness cloaked the neighborhood, mask-like smiles from their neighbors turned into shadows of suspicion. The weight of their history bore down on her. She could feel the danger pressing against their door, something ancient and malevolent creeping closer, waiting to reveal itself. Suddenly, a noise shattered the silence, a loud crash from the attic. Heart racing, Laura and Adam exchanged horrified glances. The past was clawing its way back into their lives, and soon, they would have to confront whatever lay in the darkness at their doorstep. Laura rushed up the attic stairs, her heart pounding like a war drum. Each creak of the steps beneath her felt ominous, a reminder that the house was awakening, perhaps even resentful of her intrusion. The air grew colder, thicker, as she neared the top, where she could hear Adam's quick, uneven breaths. "Adam, are you okay?" she shouted, trying to mask her fear with a touch of urgency. "Yeah, just a little scared," came his muffled reply, tinged with trepidation. As she pushed the attic door open, dust motes danced in the faint light from the single window. Adam stood frozen, staring down at the box that had sent a tremor through their lives. The lid lay partially open, the rosary protruding like a serpent poised to strike. Shadows flitted around them, flickering in the corner of her eye, mocking her sense of safety. "Where are you?" she murmured, the words escaping her lips before she could think. The room felt alive, the walls twitching as if breathing with a dark pulse. "Mom. I think I saw something," Adam said, his voice barely above a whisper. She could see the rising panic in his eyes. "Just breathe, we'll figure this out." She stepped closer to him, instinctively placing her hand on his shoulder, attempting to ground her son in their shared reality. But he flinched as if her touch burned. "I thought it was just an old box," he stammered, "but when I touched the rosary, I felt something." Laura felt her stomach churn as she knelt beside him. The rosary, with its strange carvings and cold weight, seemed to throne beneath her fingertips. She hesitated, then reached out to touch it. The moment her skin made contact, a jolt shot through her, raw and primal. Images flashed in her mind: incantations, ancient rites, faces twisted in anguish. "Adam, we need to leave this." She yanked her hand back, terror slicing through her chest. "Get away from that." But even as she spoke, a sinister whisper curled into her ear. "Your blood, your lineage." She spun around, eyes wide, but the attic seemed empty save for the two of them. The walls creaked as if sharing their secrets, but Laura couldn't listen. She grasped Adam's arm and pulled him towards the door. Suddenly, the temperature dropped. A gust of wind so fierce it seemed to have substance howled through the room, fluttering the boxes and sending dust flying. "What is happening?" Adam cried. The shadows coalesced, looming closer, a smothering darkness birthed from the corners of clutter. Faces appeared, twisted and anguished, their mouths moving as if whispering her name. Images morphed into snapshots of despair, rituals in moonlight, the chanting, the sacrifices. Laura's breathing quickened. She was suffocating under the weight of her ancestry. "Mom!" Adam screamed, pulling at her sleeve. The grip of fear fueled her adrenaline, and she stumbled backward, her eyes frantically scanning for an escape. "We have to go. Now." She yanked him along, battling against the suffocating presence that was fighting to keep them tethered. As they neared the stairs, Laura felt something cold wrap around her ankle, a translucent hand, a ghostly reminder of history come to life. It tightened, as if the house itself wanted to hold her there. "No!" She shrieked, kicking at it, feeling it slip. They bolted down the stairs, hearts racing, echoing against the walls that felt alive, whispering sinister secrets. They smashed through the door into the safety of the living room, breaths coming in heaving gasps. But the shadows had not followed. They stood in charged silence, both knowing that leaving the attic did not mean leaving the horrors behind. An ominous knock resounded from the front door, deep and unyielding. Adam edged closer, eyes darting towards the sound. Who could that be? Laura's heart dropped. "Maybe it's just someone from the neighborhood," she lied, though nagging dread twitched in her stomach. But deep down, their lives had altered irreversibly. Something was waiting, lurking just beyond the threshold, a darkness that would soon claim its due. As the knocking intensified, an unsettling thought flickered through her mind. What if the past wasn't finished with them yet? What if their lineage came with obligations far more sinister than they understood? "Stay behind me," she instructed, bracing herself for whatever lay ahead. With a quivering hand, she turned the doorknob. The air thickened with anticipation and dread, twisting around them like a tightening noose. What awaited them on the other side would change everything they thought they knew. The door creaked open, pulling away from the frame with a reluctant groan. Laura's breath hitched, caught somewhere between anticipation and dread. Outside, the darkness loomed heavy, shrouding whatever lay beyond in an unsettling shadow. "Mom!" Adam whispered, his voice barely a tremor against the backdrop of silence. "What if it's..." "Just stay close, Adam. We'll face it together." The words barely left her mouth when a gust surged through the open doorway, sending a shiver down her spine. The smell of damp earth and decay wafted in, suffocating her thoughts. There was no one there. Just an empty porch, the moan of the wind the only sound that filled the void. She hesitated, the weight of the night air crushing. What force had summoned them to the threshold? Let South just close the door, Adam urged, glancing over his shoulder, a nervous tremble behind his eyes. As Laura leaned to shut the door, a faint rustle emerged from the bushes, the sound slicing through the silence. A low, guttural growl reverberated. Laura froze, heart slamming against her ribcage like a machine gone rogue. Did you hear that? Adam's grip tightened around her waist, eyes darting wildly. The shadows deepened, stretching like fingers probing at the edges of their reality. Let us go inside, she said, forcing herself to move forward, urgency nudging her back. But as she turned, a shadow flickered across the porch, darker than the surrounding night, darting quickly behind the nearest tree. Mom! Adam's voice was panicked, an alarm that grabbed her spine and twisted. There's something out there. Rushing back inside, they slammed the door, locking it with a trembling hand. Despite feeling safer, dread bubbled beneath the surface, a tidal wave of uncertainty waiting to spill forth. Standing in the dim hallway, the shadows hung thicker, vibrating with an anticipation that sent icy pricks along her skin. Should we call for help? Adam voiced, his tone clipped by fear. Laura held her breath. What help could they summon against whatever was lurking? No. We should not draw attention. We need to figure out what is going on. What about the attic? Maybe that box. He stammered, eyes glistening with fear. No. We're done with that. We barely got out. She shook her head fiercely. We're not going back there. Not until we understand what we're dealing with. But even as she spoke, echoes of that ancient whisper cascaded through her mind, the promise of her blood, the history seeping from the walls of their home, the legacy that felt more curse than blessing. Outside, the wind howled, pressing against the house like a living thing. The shadows deepened in the corners, shifting as if alive and aware. Mom, what if they come for us? Adam's voice cracked, eyes wide and pools of terror, reflecting raw vulnerability. The pounding in her chest quickened as she tried to shake off the notion. They won. We'll stay vigilant. Another furious knock echoed through the silence, this one louder, reverberating against the wooden frame of the door. Heart racing, Laura approached the window and peeked out, breath hitching. What she saw sent icy tendrils of fear curling deep within her. A figure stood in the yard, shrouded in the cloak of night, obscured but undeniably watching. The face was pale, too pale, with hollow eyes that seemed to reflect something ancient and cruel. Mom, what's wrong? Adam whispered, tightening his grasp on her shirt. There's someone out there, Laura murmured, every instinct in her screaming to retreat. The figure shifted, subtle but distinct. It lifted one skeletal hand, pointing directly at them. An awareness swept over her, an unmistakable knowledge that whatever had been unleashed was only beginning to unfurl. Desperate, she pulled away from the window, her mind racing. They had to act, run or hide, reject the past or confront it head-on. In that instant, the walls felt too close, the doors too thin. Mom, what do we do? Adam's voice trembled, fear pooling in his eyes as he glanced between the door and window. Laura took a breath, steeling herself. We need to find out what they want. And we need to prepare for what comes next. The figure's fingers curled tighter around the familiar darkness, the air thickening, closing in. Whatever waited outside was no mere trespasser, it was an omen. But before she could move, a piercing scream shattered the weight of the night, echoing through the walls, rattling the very foundation of their reality. What was that? Adam gasped, eyes wide, fear morphing to terror. I don't know, she said, chest tightening with dread and determination. But it sounds like it's coming from the attic. With adrenaline surging, Laura realized with gut-wrenching clarity the house was only just beginning to reveal its true horrors. And they might not make it out alive if they didn't confront what lay beneath the surface. As another distant scream echoed, she knew one thing: they were far from finished with the past. What awaited them in the shadows of the attic was a torment that could bend even the strongest will unless they acted instantly. With terror writ large in their hearts, they prepared to face what would be a harrowing showdown. In that abyss of dread, they took the first step back toward the attic, knowing full well that this time, nothing would be the same. The attic door loomed above them, a dark portal whispering of predicaments best left unspoken. Each step they took reverberated on the wooden stairs like a countdown to the unknown. Laura gripped the handrail, heart pounding, the weight of imminent terror pressing heavily on her chest. Adam followed closely, his breath shallow, a shivering echo of her own anxiety. The door creaked open, revealing a slanted ceiling and disarrayed boxes that held more than just forgotten memories. Dust motes hung suspended in the few beams of light that filtered through the grimy window, shimmering like trapped spirits. The atmosphere crackled, an electric tension curling in the air, raising the hairs on the back of Laura's neck. "Mom, do you really think we should be here?" Adam whispered, his voice quaking. "Maybe, answers are up here," she said softly. But doubt gnawed at her confidence, and the four walls felt like they were closing in. As they stepped further inside, a sudden draft swept through, sweeping dust into the air and scattering the remnants of years left unchecked. Out of the corner of her eye, Laura spotted a box marked family heirlooms. A sense of twisted curiosity compelled her. What stories rested inside? What darkness had lingered in her family's past? "Let's check this one," she said, forcing a shaky breath. The plan was simple: find what might explain the horrors they faced. She approached the box, fingers trembling. With a reluctant yank, the lid surrendered, and light caught on something metallic. "Mom, be careful," Adam warned, eyes darting around, as a chill snaked under their skin. Old tarnished silver gleamed up at them, intertwined with delicate chains, a locket hanging severely from the edge. Laura lifted it carefully, the cold metal surprising against her warm palm. Clutching it tightly, she slipped the chain over her head, feeling the weight settle against her heart, and then, a movement caught her periphery, a shadow towering behind the shelves scattered with old books and trinkets. Panic shot through her veins. "Adam!" she hissed, voice nearly a breath, but he wasn't looking at her. He was staring, frozen, at the doorway they had just come through. Laura spun on her heel, dread pulsating as she saw the figure, now entirely visible, looming just beyond the threshold. It edged slightly into the attic, its hollow eyes boring straight into her soul. "Go back," she warned Adam fiercely, but it was too late. The figure stepped forward, the floorboards creaking under its weight, and suddenly, a shrill voice punctured the silence, a laugh that dripped with malice. "Did you think the past could be buried?" It sneered, each word thick with an ancient threat. The shadows pooled thicker, growing limbs that reached toward Laura and Adam, and the air twisted colder, stinging against their exposed skin. Trapped in the attic, they were surrounded by the remnants of their lineage and the embodiment of the sins that came with it. "Mom! Run!" Adam screamed, his voice shrill. A primal instinct kicked in, and they rushed toward the only other exit, the pull-down stairs leading back into the hallway, but the figure surged forward, reaching for them with hands like gnarled roots. They sprinted, but thick shadows wrapped around Laura's ankles, pulling her down. Adam cried out, gripping her hand, desperately trying to pull her back. "Let go!" she shouted, but her body felt heavier than it ever had before, as if the very essence of the house was pulling her into its depths. With a final, panicked effort, she forced her body to break free, wrenching herself away, just as the figure lunged, fingers brushing against her sleeve like icy fire. They scrambled down the stairs, the scream of the unseen figure echoing above them, rising to a crescendo. "Mom, what are we going to do?" Adam's voice was barely above a whisper, fear seeping into every word. As they stumbled into the dim light of the hallway, Laura knew something terrible was afoot. The past wasn't just haunting them, it was coming for them. They needed to uncover the truth, not just for survival, but to confront the horror that dwelled in their blood. With every ounce of courage she could summon, Laura turned to Adam, voice steely despite the ice coursing through her. "We're not finished." "Not yet." Just as she spoke, a deafening crash echoed from the attic door, the figure's wrath pouring loudly down the stairs behind them. They bolted into the safety of the living room, barely holding onto the fragile veil of safety, but as they glanced back, something in the darkness shifted again, leaving them to wonder had they really escaped, or was this just the beginning? What's next? Adam whispered, fear clinging to his voice, a smudge of disbelief staining his words, and the answer lurked just beyond the doorway, hungry for retribution. It was clear, the darkest terrors of their family line awaited, eager to unveil what lay hidden in the shadows of their past. Heart pounding in her ears, Laura shoved the living room door closed, pressing her back against it, the wood groaning under the weight of their escape. Adam stood beside her, wide-eyed and trembling, sweat glistening on his brow. They shared a fleeting glance filled with silent horror, both knowing that whatever they had unleashed was not just in the attic, it was here, now, among them. "Mom, what if it comes in here?" Adam's voice cracked, the stark terror making him sound so small. "Then we need to find a weapon," Laura replied, her own voice barely escaping her throat. The house seemed to breathe around them, each creak of the floorboards echoing like a warning. She scanned the room, desperate for something, anything, to use as a shield against the growing darkness. Suddenly, a loud thud rattled the attic door, a sound like thunder in the stillness. The door vibrated beneath her hand, as if something colossal was hurling itself against it. "Mom! What is that?" Adam squeaked. "I don't know." Her heart seized, panic wrapping around her like a vice. "We have to get out of this room." She edged away from the door, leading Adam toward the hallway. With bated breath, they crept through the shadows, each step feeling like a gamble with fate. The darkness felt alive, wrapping around them like a shroud, whispering promises of despair. "Where are we going?" Adam whispered. "We need to find the others." "We can't face this alone," she murmured, determination rising through her fear. Clenching her fists, Laura pushed aside the trembling sensation that threatened to bring her to her knees. As they moved deeper into the house, the air grew heavier, thickened with an inexplicable dread that clawed at their lungs. They passed the kitchen, but the room felt like a trap, its bright surfaces a stark contrast to the panic that clung to them. "Laura," Adam stopped, his eyes widening in horror. She spun back no longer like a mother, but a sentinel against the darkness. The back door creaked slowly, a silver gleam of light spilling in from outside, taunting them with the promise of escape. But before she could take a step, chilling laughter rolled through the air, echoing like an ominous storm. It seeped from the very walls of the house. "Did you think you could run?" It was the figure from the attic, its voice oozing malice, more menacing now, almost lyrical. "Every room knows you, every corner remembers your fear. No. We won't let you have us." Laura shouted into the encroaching darkness, yet doubt clouded her mind. What good were words against such ancient evil? The laughter grew louder, the room swirling with shadows that thickened, warping the very fabric of their sanctuary. Outside the back door, the tremors of the earth felt alive, as if the ground itself was conspiring against them. "Mom!" Adam grabbed her hand, desperation radiating from his small frame. "What do we do?" "Stay close. We'll go back through the hallway. We can reach the front door." She steeled herself, dragging Adam along despite her trepidation. Yet as they turned, a wall of dark began to shift and coil, claws reaching out from the wall with a thirst for claims unfulfilled. Laura felt something brush against her ankle, cold, wet, creeping. "Keep moving!" She screamed, panic propelling them forward as darkness chased them, hungry and insidious, clawing at their resolve. The hallway stretched interminably, each step feeling like a betrayal of time, each moment drawing them deeper into a labyrinth of lost souls. Just when they thought they could break free, the front door slammed shut with a resonating finality. They raced toward it, but something heavy was pressed against it, locking them in. "Mom, we're trapped!" Adam shrieked, fear spilling into every syllable. "Not yet!" She cried, lunging at the door, pushing with all her might. But it wouldn't budge. The air thickened, swirling with whispers, words they couldn't understand rising around them, a cacophony of despair echoing through the house, and just then, a figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the dim light of the hallway, a familiar face twisted with malice. It was someone Laura thought she knew, someone who had once promised to protect her. "Hello, Laura," it cooed, voice sweet and cruel, cutting through the veil of their terror, chilling her to the bone. "I've come to collect what is rightfully mine." "Who are you?" The words barely formed as disbelief washed over her. "Oh, my dear," the figure said, stepping closer, shadows swirling around it, "you've always known." As terror tightened its grip around their hearts, one horrible truth raced through Laura's mind. In this family lineage, betrayal ran deeper than blood. The house echoed with the unspoken, and they were about to uncover the true horror lurking in the insatiable darkness that ran through their veins. Laura's breath hitched as recognition clawed its way through the haze of fear. The figure before her, the smirk that twisted the lips she once kissed goodnight, belonged to her uncle, Richard. He had vanished years ago, leaving no trace. The wild stories whispered through the family had branded him a coward, a derelict. Yet here he stood, eyes glinting with the sheen of something unholy. "Uncle Richard?" she croaked, the name tasting bitter on her tongue. He cocked his head, his bark of a laugh reverberating off the walls, a sickening sound that made her stomach churn. "So sweet, dear Laura, but I've grown tired of pretenses. You were always too naive for your own good. Get away from us." Adam wailed, his small hand squeezing hers like a lifeline. Richard stepped closer, the shadows trailing behind him like fingers beckoning for their due. They wrapped around him like a cloak, protective yet threatening. "There's no point in running. This house belongs to me now. It hungers for you. It remembers." Panic ricocheted inside Laura as the walls seemed to breathe with malicious intent. Each creak of the floorboards echoed a warning, drawing closer. They were trapped, ensnared in a web wrought with betrayal and blood. "What do you want?" she choked out, fear pooling in her stomach like lead. "Isn't it obvious? To collect what's been promised, to reclaim what runs through your veins." Richard grinned, revealing teeth far too sharp, too eager. "The house stands as witness to your family's sins. I am the keeper of what you owe." "Mom." Adam tugged at her shirt, his voice trembling. "What does he mean?" She couldn't answer. Laura's chest tightened as memories of whispered secrets flooded her mind, an attic filled with tomes of dark magic, locked away in family curse. This was not the simple family legacy she had believed, it was a tapestry woven with dark threads of cruelty and power. "He means us harm," tension thrummed through her voice. "We won't let him take us." Richard's laughter rang out, ringing like a bell tearing through the fabric of their safety. "You misunderstand." He stepped back into the shadows, his form flickering like candlelight, dancing out of view before flickering back. "I don't need to take you. You're already mine, it's in your blood." With that, a sudden rush of air blasted through the hallway, ice cold, filled with whispers that coiled around Laura's mind. She felt the walls closing in, the air thickening as cold tendrils tightened around her limbs. "Run!" she shouted, pulling Adam towards the rear of the house. They needed to find a way out, a way to survive. But the laughing shadows seemed determined to keep them there, to corral them into the clutches of their family's darkness. Just as she reached the kitchen, something struck her arm, a sharp pain flared, then faded. She looked down to see a trickle of crimson seeping through her sleeve. The house was alive, taking its toll on them, draining their resolve. "Mom!" Adam cried. "We need to go back." "No. We can't. We must find a way." Just ahead, Laura spotted a window, slightly ajar, the promise of freedom glistening beyond the shroud of terror. She pushed forward, adrenaline igniting her resolve. But before they could reach it, Richard's voice washed over them again, smooth and syrupy. "Do you think you can escape? You're part of this house now, whether you like it or not. Let it embrace you." Desperation flared through Laura as the darkness shifted, gnarled hands reaching through the walls attempting to swallow them whole. She had never felt so utterly alone, so lost. Mom! I'm scared. Adam's voice trembled, his youthful innocence grasping at the frayed edges of hope. Then she caught sight of something glinting in the shadows. Grab my hand. Laura shouted, racing toward the light of the window, the cold surrounding them squeezing tighter. The darkness clawed at her back, threatening to drag her into despair, but just as she was about to leap, a piercing shriek echoed from behind, reverberating throughout the house. It froze her in place. Something worse than betrayal stood waiting behind her. Something that transcended her uncle's wicked intentions, and as she turned back, she saw a harrowing sight that made her stomach drop. The figure was no longer just Richard's shadows swirled, merging into something far more horrifying. "Welcome home, Laura," the dual voices intoned in unison, a sickening harmony of her past and the fears of her lineage. "It's time to remember." Just as she felt herself slipping into the abyss, Adam gasped at something behind her, his wide eyes filled with unspeakable horror, forcing Laura to confront the overwhelming truth that lay within the darkness. Was escape truly possible, or was this house their eternal prison? The shadows twisted, swirling around her like a storm, dark tendrils reaching for them as if they were alive. The air thickened, a fragrant mix of decay and despair filling Laura's lungs. She could barely breathe, her heart pounding in a frantic rhythm against her ribcage. "Mom! What do we do?" Adam cried, panic lacing his voice. His eyes searched her face, desperate for salvation. "Richard, no." Whatever he had become stood at the center of this nightmare, the laughter still echoing through the air. "Feel it, Laura. The power that binds you. Your lineage is drenched in darkness. You cannot escape what flows in your veins." "No!" she screamed, pulling Adam closer. The shadows pressed in, surrounding them, pushing. Laura felt the last remnants of her resolve cracking. Clawing at the fraying edges of her sanity, she shouted, "We're not afraid of you." But deep inside, the knot of terror knotted tighter. The figure before her, transformed and monumental, loomed larger. Richard stepped forward, and the darkness followed like a loyal servant. "You should be afraid, my dear. For I am the one who holds the key to the family's secrets. And I plan to unlock them, starting with you." The walls seemed to pulse with his words, shuddering as if the house itself understood. Laura felt the floor beneath her vibrate, shaking with a force that nearly sent her sprawling. "Run!" she urged again, her voice breaking as she pulled Adam along. With every step, the darkness howled, the temperature dropping around them. Each shadow that darted forward felt like fingers grasping at their clothes, trying to drag them back. They had to reach the door, but their path twisted, the hallway shifting unnaturally, leading them away from freedom. "Mom, where are we going?" Adam's voice trembled as he stumbled behind her. "Just keep moving. Don't look back," she yelled, pushing through the sheer panic trying to overtake them. But it was as if the house enjoyed their fear. An unseen force whipped around them, the walls closing in tighter. The portraits that lined the hall shifted, eyes that had once been painted firmly now filled with life and malice, watching their every move. Then, a low growl echoed from behind. It pressed against them like an invisible weight. Laura's breath faltered. "What was that?" she whispered, feeling the weight of dread settle on her shoulders. "I don't know." Adam's voice was bland with terror. She could see the reflection of her own fear in his eyes, mirrored back at her. The shadows surged forward, sweeping across the floor like thick smoke, and she realized too late that they were cornered not by Richard, but by their very own bloodline. "Family calls to family, Laura. You should be grateful for the invitation." And then, with a speed she couldn't comprehend, Richard lunged forward. A jagged shard of darkness shot through the air toward them. Laura shoved Adam aside, feeling the icy sensation of dread spreading across her skin as the dark mist enveloped her own body. She could barely scream. Sound was lost in the formidable grasp of the shadows. Just as madness threatened to swallow her, a sharp light sliced through the darkness, illuminating the shadowy figure. It flickered like a dying flame. Richard recoiled, snarling, as more light poured in from the cracks of the walls. Each fissure revealed glimpses of family memories, long buried truths, horrible acts tangled with their existence. "Fight it, Laura. Fight them." Adam's voice cut through the haze, clear and ringing. It ignited a spark inside her, trembling yet fierce. With newfound determination, Laura surged forward, racing toward that sliver of light, pulling Adam behind her. The darkness shrieked, the sound piercing, raw with fury. They wouldn't be taken, not like this, but as they neared escape, that familiar laughter rang out, a sickly sweet melody. "You can't outrun your family's past, Laura. It will always find you." And with that, a final rush of shadows surged toward them, wrapping around her legs like serpents, threatening to drag her back into the void. Gritting her teeth, Laura fought against the pull, desperation igniting her courage. They were so close, yet the truth loomed closer still. Was she even capable of breaking free, or would the darkness claim her for good? In the moment of hesitation, the room seemed to pulse with anticipation. The shadow reached out, grasping her wrist and yanking her back. The world spun as they were engulfed in a whirlpool of black, and the truth was laid bare. Could she strike a blow against the legacy that bound them? Or would she find herself eternally shackled, a prisoner in her own bloodline? The pull of shadows intensified, pulling Laura deeper into the dark abyss. The light, a mere flicker now, began to dim, stretching away from her grasp like a dying star. Panic clawed at her throat as she felt the icy fingers wrap tighter, dragging her not just toward the unknown but into the very heart of her family's horrors. "Mom!" Adam's voice sliced through her haze, an echo against the growing noise of whispering shadows. He fought against the shrouded gloom, but was overwhelmed by the oppressive force binding them. Each whispered secret felt like cold breath against her skin, each family memory twisted and corrupted. "No! Let him go!" Laura screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the howling darkness. The shadows surged, morphing and writhing, revealing grotesque faces that flickered in and out of existence. The room began to morph again, the familiar walls warping into terrifying scenes from the past, her family's legacy. A blood-soaked ritual unfolded before her eyes, ancestors clad in tattered robes, their faces obscured yet pulsating with hunger. They gathered under a gnarled tree, their hands raised high toward a blood moon. A chill coursed through her body. She recognized the tree from her childhood, a twisted relic in the backyard her parents had always warned her to stay away from. No. This can't be real. She gripped Adam tighter, despair tightening her heart, yet, deep inside, she felt that familiar sense of dread rise, a recognition of her parents' silenced secrets. "Family curses," she murmured, the implications washing over her like ice water. Had she fled one nightmare only to confront another? Richard's figure loomed closer, every movement like a puppet controlled by unseen strings. "You see them, don't you? They crave your essence. Your blood is what they lack, the key to their immortality." "Shut up." Laura spat back. Each denial fueled the shadows, growing stronger and more relentless. Panic threatened to pin her against the ground. She and Adam were fighting against their very own history, a history she didn't fully understand. The truth of the fissured past loomed larger than the darkness itself. "Mom!" Adam gasped, the shadows drawing ever closer, tendrils gripping his arms. "Help me!" A rush of power burst forth within her, a mix of fear and unyielding love for her son. "You will not have him." Her voice thundered, fierce and primal. With a final surge of strength, she ripped free, breaking through the suffocating veil of shadows. The light flickered brighter, splintering the darkness around them. "Come on!" Encouragement shot through her as she pulled Adam to his feet. They sprinted toward the growing light, shadows writhing behind them, snarling as they felt their hold loosen. But just as freedom seemed to unite them, a piercing shriek echoed through the air. "You think you can escape unscathed? You are mine." Richard's voice was a chilling blend of authority and desperation. The light burst open like a dam, momentarily blinding them. Laura felt arms reach out, wrapping around her waist, drawing her back. She stumbled, her fingers grazing the light's edge, the very fabric of warmth and safety. No. She twisted violently, flinging herself toward it, but the darkness clawed hungrily at her heels. What awaited them if they failed? How far would this legacy chase them? And just as they collided with the light, a monstrous force jerked Laura back. The shadows howled in victory, and she caught a glimpse of Richard, triumphant, his eyes glittering with malice as he reformed from the mist. "We are just getting started, Laura. The true horror is yet to be revealed." They fell back into the thickening shadows, and behind them, the portal of light flickered and died. It was a race against time now. Could she fight the curse binding her family, or would she fall victim to a history she never wanted? The great question loomed ahead: what dark truths awaited her in the depths of her bloodline, and were they strong enough to consume her whole? The shadows coiled tightly around Laura and Adam, squeezing the breath from their lungs. Each gulp of air tasted like ash, thick with despair and the stench of decay. Afraid to look back, Laura felt the icy tendrils curl around her ankles, pulling her downward as if the very ground was hungry. Adam's cries echoed in her mind, wavering between hope and terror. "Hold on, Adam. We have to find a way out," she shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. She could feel the darkness trying to devour their resolve, whispering secrets, tempting her to give in. Suddenly, the grotesque faces of her ancestors materialized again, their mouths moving in silent screams. A cacophony of sounds swirled around them, and Laura felt a piercing pain in her chest. Was it her heart or the weight of her family's sins pressing down on her? Listen to their pain. Laura Richard's voice slithered through the air, wrapping around her mind like an unwelcome vine. "They've waited for too long for someone like you. The blood ties are strong. You can't escape what you are." "No." Laura screamed back, fiercely shaking her head. She could sense something stirring within her, something ancient and dark. Panic surged, and she felt the walls of her sanity cracking under the pressure of the suffocating truth. With a sudden jolt, the shadows shifted. Laura was enveloped in swirling darkness, and in an instant, she found herself standing in front of the gnarled tree from her childhood, a grotesque mirror of her family's legacy. It loomed larger now, its twisted branches like skeletal arms reaching out for her. "Come to me," whispered the tree, its voice a soft but chilling caress. "I can show you the truth." "No." Adam shouted, his small hand shaking as he clutched Laura's arm. "Stay away from it." But she was mesmerized, trapped in a web of history woven from pain and bloodshed. Visions flooded her mind: the rituals, the sacrifices, the horrifying truths hidden behind closed doors. The tree's roots pulsed like a heartbeat beneath her feet, sinking with the dread swelling in her chest. Each secret was a haunting echo, drawing her closer. "Your family was powerful," Laura Richard said, stepping through the darkness, his smile twisted. "Your bloodline feeds upon the darkness, reveling in the chaos they create. You're the last of them. Embrace it." She felt herself teetering on the edge of a precipice, emotions pulling her in every direction. Love for Adam, fear of the curse, and the seductive promise of power whispering like a siren's song. It felt like she was being torn in two, each half urging her forward and back. With a roar of defiance, she stepped away from the tree, clutching Adam tightly. "We will not be part of your horrors." She felt the power surge in her, not the dark magic of her ancestors but something pure and fierce created from her love for her son. The shadows screamed in frustration, convulsing as they swirled around them, desperate to pull them back. Laura's heart raced, and adrenaline coursed through her veins. She needed to fight, to break the cycle once and for all. "Run!" she cried, leading Adam deeper into the shadowy labyrinth. They darted through twisted corridors where faces pressed against the walls, their eyes pleading, wailing. The further they went, the more they seemed to dissolve, stripped of their power but not their wrath. "We can't keep this up," Adam gasped, his voice shaking. Fear flickered in his eyes, mirroring her own, but the danger was ever present, Richard's laughter puncturing the air behind them. "You think you can outrun your destiny? It's in your blood, Laura. You are bound to this land of shadows." Just ahead, a faint glow flickered like a beacon. Laura pushed them forward, her heart pounding like a war drum. In his plea, she found strength. Perhaps there was still a chance to uncover the truth, even if it meant confronting their darkest fears. As they barreled toward the light, a new vision surged in her mind, a vision of her mother, a smile on her face, and shadows swirling around her. You have the power to break the bonds. The light pulsed, urging them forward, but with each step, a greater terror loomed. Could she truly face what lay ahead? Was the curse more than just a family story? Would finding the truth save them, or unlock something even darker? A resounding crash echoed through the air behind them, and the darkness stirred with a menacing growl. The question hung unspoken: how much longer could they run before the past caught up? The shadows surged toward them, an avalanche of fury waiting to drag them back into their curse. Laura's heart raced as she and Adam approached the flickering light. It shimmered like hope, immersed deep within the chaos surrounding them. Shadows tailed them, howling with rage, desperate to reclaim what was theirs. Calamity felt imminent, but she couldn't let fear chain her down. "Mom, hurry!" Adam's voice was tinged with desperation, an anchor pulling her back from the depths of uncertainty. She peeked behind. Richard's laughter echoed like a dark melody, promises of torment nestled in the guttural tones. That image, twisted and triumphant, ignited pure rage within her. "We won't let this happen," she yelled, gripping Adam's hand tight as they raced onward. The light pulsed closer, calling to them like a lighthouse in the midst of a furious storm. With every step, the shadows undulated, grasping vainly at their ankles. "You will regret defying your lineage," Richard shouted, anger reverberating against the ancient walls. But Laura's resolve hardened as she felt Adam stumble beside her. With a firm grip, she pulled him closer. They were not just running, they were fighting for their future. They reached the light, stepping into its warmth, and suddenly everything felt alive. The room unfolded before them like an ancient scroll, memories swimming in the air. Ethereal images converged, each flicker unveiling a hidden truth: a family torn apart by greed, bound by blood. She could see generations of shadows, their faces etched in pain, lingering at the edges of her vision. "Mom, what is happening?" Adam's voice quivered against the sudden pull of nostalgia. "It's the truth, Adam," Laura replied, breathless but resolute. "Our past has kept us in chains for too long." Inspired by the revelations swirling around them, she focused on the light's comforting glow, willing it to engulf her and her son, to cleanse their lineage of despair. The shadows writhed, twisted faces contorting in despair as they sensed the shift. "You'll never escape. You are tethered to the legacy." Richard's voice echoed fiercely, filled with malice as he surged forward, intent on reclaiming them. His shape morphed, the very essence of darkness, all-consuming and relentless. Drawing strength from Adam's presence, Laura stepped forward into the heart of the light, her voice steady even as fear gripped her. "We are not defined by your darkness. We refuse to be part of your twisted legacy." Suddenly, the light flared brighter, cutting through the darkness like a beacon, illuminating shadows that had once been formidable. She could feel Richard faltering, hesitating in the face of this unexpected defiance. "Leave us alone," she cried, the rawness of her fear boiling into determination. Richard stumbled back, shocked, as the shadows shrieked, pulling away. The images swirling around them began to shift. "No, this can't be. You can't sever the bond." But Laura felt her family's power coursing through her, a force melding with newfound hope. She raised her hands, and the light surged, enveloping the dark memories, submerging them, and soon they began to erode. Whirls of darkness dissolved into tiny flickers as her heart pulsed with courage. The pulling tendrils finally released their grip, and she felt Adam responding, drawing strength from her unyielding spirit. They were escaping the dark clutch of despair woven through generations of their ancestry. "We won, stop!" They shouted together, the defiance mingling in a whirlwind of joyous note. In one final push, they surged forward, and just as Richard lunged with ferocity, the light expanded, swallowing the shadows whole, reshaping them into shimmering dust. The room quaked, but they held on to each other, resolute against the turmoil. As the darkness evaporated into nothingness, a soft peace settled around them. Richard's final wail of fury echoed off into the void, fading into a whisper, leaving nothing but silence. A serene light enveloped them, washing away the weight of the past. Breathless and overwhelmed, they stood together in the aftermath, hearts racing but free. "It's over, Mom?" Adam asked, eyes wide and hopeful. "It is," Laura confirmed softly, squeezing his hand. "We broke the cycle. The past doesn't own us anymore." Hope blossomed inside her chest as she surveyed their familiar surroundings. The house was quieter, shadows less menacing, as if it too had been released from oppression. "Let us go home," Adam said, and with unyielding assurance, they turned to step into the future together. As they walked outside into the dawning light, a vast horizon opened before them, filled with infinite possibility. Together, they faced the warmth of the dawn, leaving behind the weight of curses and the echoes of names lost to darkness. They were no longer prisoners of their lineage, they were the authors of their own destiny, and with hearts lightened by new beginnings, Laura knew they could finally create a legacy worthy of their future. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button right now to help the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this gripping conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who must see this ending. Your support means everything.